Hey, how's everybody doing? This is John from Century 21. I am a broker down here. I specialize in Alpharetta, Roswell, Sandy Springs, the northern suburbs along 400. I want to talk with you for a bit as we took a drive, let you know why I came down here and what I'm all about. So let's get going. I started my career in New York City about 20 years ago on the development side, and I spent most of my time as an executive at developers, building out property management companies, building buildings, buying and selling buildings, buying and selling my own apartment, buying and selling houses in Westchester. And over the years, I developed a certain expertise in this industry. I've lived it. I've moved from New York City to Westchester. I moved from Westchester to Texas. Moved from Texas down to Alpharetta. And I feel like it's given me a pretty good handle on what's important and what's not down here. So I want to sort of take you through it. A lot of the reason we moved here was for our kids and for the schools, to sort of give them a better opportunity, more green, more, just a slower, kind of nicer paced life. I didn't want my kids to grow up like I grew up, basically in a total concrete jungle. So we went looking for neighborhoods, and we found Alpharetta to be really one of the best places that we could have possibly gone. It has an incredible school system. The nature is spectacular. I mean, you feel like you're in a forest. They have done something with how they've sort of zoned it out, where things are very dense. I mean, you're really in the thick of it, but you never feel like it. You can't really see it from the road, so you feel like you're driving through forests all the time. It feels very relaxed, but there's a ton of business here. There's a ton of opportunity here. There's just a ton of work and stuff to be done. I am constantly blown away by just how much there really is. Part of the thing that has really blown me away down here is just how much it changes you, how much it's changed me. Everything from how I drive, like you let people in when they put on a blinker, right? You're not super stressed about things. I mean, I turn on the auto drive in this car and I just sort of sit there and take it easy, right? I don't let it make me crazy. But the biggest thing that's different is neighborhoods matter so much more here than they do in New York. I mean, everybody talks about neighborhoods in New York, but they blur together more. Out here, the schools really do define the neighborhoods, both the private schools and the public schools. So as opposed to in Manhattan, where there's very, very few people, I don't know if that's true. It feels like there's very few people who live in Manhattan that are sending their kids to public school in Manhattan. It doesn't matter. You could be in a great neighborhood, a spectacular neighborhood, but the reality is most people go private. A lot of people go private down here too. There's some excellent private schools down here, especially if you have a child who's neurodiverse or who needs some extra support. There's really an incredible private school system down here, and the public schools are very, very well funded for it too. It's been incredibly impressive to me. But it drives so much down here, and people don't always realize that, right? They think that just because they're in this good neighborhood or in this good town, they're going to get the schools that they want, and that's just not really how it works. Even holding aside rezoning of schools, you need to really understand what's going on at a very local level when you make these commitments. The other thing that can happen is you can go into the right school for your child, but wind up on like the wrong side of the highway for your job, where suddenly you have this extra 15 minutes where you're chewing on the steering wheel, stuck in traffic, because you've got to like get across the highway and then cut around. It's ridiculous. So local knowledge is super duper important here, more so than it was in Manhattan for me or anywhere in New York, because in New York, like if you're a little bit out of the way, it means walking an extra block, right? Or it means like maybe one transfer from like the express to the local because you're not on the right stop. But down here, it just changes your life. Like you need to sort of make a triangle for your work, your house, and your kids' school, and figure out where you're going to put yourself in that triangle, because if you do it wrong, it's awful to spend all day like driving around, bopping from place to place and having it be, none of the drives are very unpleasant, right? I mean, there's not a ton of traffic out here, and even when there is traffic, it's different than New York traffic. It just flows, it moves. But there's a real difference, and the most important part is making sure that you understand what you're getting into before you get into it, right? Because unwinding these things, once you buy a house and you suddenly find out that your commute is brutal, or that, like, you know, that getting your kid to school in the morning is an absolute nightmare, then, you know, you want to know that stuff before you move in. That's where I feel like I bring a lot of value to this. I'm not a very high pressure salesperson. I haven't spent a ton of time on, you know, developing my sales skills. Most of my knowledge and most of my expertise comes from, you know, 20 years of real estate and operating in New York City, buying and selling houses down here, buying and selling houses in Texas. And that's where I've gotten a good feel for what matters for people moving down here. And I feel like what matters for people moving down here and the questions that you have to ask are things that are sort of, the people who live here, they just kind of know it, right? They understand what's going on and what to ask. But if you're moving from, you know, the Northeast, you know, New York, Philly, DC, even like Chicago, these bigger cities, things are a little bit different. And you gotta figure out how that's gonna work for you and how you're gonna navigate that, and do you need help navigating it? So if you need help navigating it, that's sort of where I can come in on these things, and that's the value that I can add. I'm not here to just, like, you know, put a butt in a seat or close a deal on a house. My goal is to really help people understand what it is that they're getting into and what's maybe the best for them. It's really been a passion of mine since I got down here. I didn't know how much joy I got out of, you know, putting people into the right spot, into the right place, finding out that they've, you know, they didn't know how good it could be. And that's what this is all about. Like, I think if people understood what you could get for your money, what it could be like living down here, it would change everything. I mean, if you told most of the people in New York, hey, guess what? If you sold your 2-bedroom, you could have, you know, this crazy house on a lake, they would be really into that. I think they would find that really, that would be something that would really resonate with a lot of people. But I find that you have to know the questions to ask first. You have to understand what can really be in it for you. Because for a lot of people, look, for me, when my wife first said, let's move to the suburbs, that was like the worst thing. I was like, no, we're not dead yet, you know? But it was a real shock to me, just how vibrant it could be out here, you know, and how diverse it could be out here, how engaging it could be out here, how calm and relaxing. I feel like I live in a country club, you know. We went from a 2-bedroom apartment to 2 acres of land with chickens, and I can still walk to Starbucks if I want to. That's something I could never get in New York, something I couldn't even imagine when I lived in New York City. If you told me, hey, John, guess what? You can sell this apartment where you and both your kids are on top of each other, and you could get this crazy house on a lake and have enough left over to buy the car that you always wanted, I wouldn't have really believed it. But it's crazy and it's true. And the forgetting the lifestyle, just what your life, what you can afford out here, what your money gets you, is so different than what it was in New York City, that I'm still kind of blown away. After 3 years of living here, 3 years before that living down in Texas, I just still cannot believe what you can get for your money. Like what it means to move from New York down to a place like this. And that is priceless. I mean, that stuff I still can't believe. I don't understand what happened there. But it's really great. I gotta love it. So right now we're pulling up, I'm on 400 right now, if you're curious, which is sort of the main north-south road from Alpharetta into Atlanta. As long as you don't need to leave like right at rush hour, you're about 30 minutes from Atlanta here. And it's really, I mean, I go to the High Museum on the weekends. There's a lot of culture. There's a lot of stuff that you didn't think was here. All right, so we're now turning off into like main Alpharetta. So right over there to the side, you can't really see it. That was Avalon. You can see, I guess you can see the those buildings off to the left. That's a really, really high-end shopping center. It's really nice. It's like a walkable thing. And now we're going to start turning into the road, so you're going to sort of see what it means to be developed, but still kind of rural. It's the best way to explain it. So we're going to go make this turn here, and we're not going to actually go onto Morris Road. My car wants me to go a place that I'm not sure I actually want to go. So let's go straight. And I mean, listen, this is my commute. My commute used to be, so I had a couple of them. I had sitting on the A forever, and it made me insane, right? It was just a nightmare of a ride. That was my first one. Then I had, when we moved to Westchester, I was on Metro North for a bit. And that's not so bad. Metro North is pretty cool. It was a very chill commute until you got into Grand Central, and then it's like everything lit off. And it was just, you went from this kind of chill environment to this like really, fighting on the subway, getting shoved in, not having enough space. And I mean, I love New York, but it's a really different life, and the stress and the intensity on the daily basis, like you don't realize what it was until it's not there anymore. And that's what I try to explain to people is that it's not just a house, right? It's not trading an apartment for a house. It's not trading like for a slower paced life, because that's not necessarily what it is. I mean, there's a lot of really high powered jobs out here, but it's about living your life without some of that stress, right? And like when you come home at the end of the day, it's not like, for me, it was always like, you'd be in the crazy of New York City, and then you would open the door to your apartment and you'd be like, and it would be this huge release. You felt like you were just calm and like you're back in your space. Here, there's not that transition like that. I mean, maybe it's when you leave your job to your car, but like, there's a lot less sort of stress in your daily life, right? A lot less friction in your daily life. And for me, that's pretty cool. I kind of like that. We're getting a little bit closer to my house right now, and you're going to start to see. So if you look over here, you see there's these trees on either side of the road, but there's actually full-on housing complexes right back there, but you can't really see it. It gives it a much more rural feel than it really is. I've grown to really appreciate that. Some of these towns out here, they do it better than others. Roswell and Alpharetta do it very, very, very well. Places like Duluth, which is also very built up, and it's a very cool place to be, it doesn't quite have that same sort of, I don't know, bucolic feel. It's a little more developed. It feels more kind of like a suburb. All right, so here we go. We're now turning. We're going to get off of Old Milton, which is one of the main sort of, I guess, east-west roads out here. And we are going to turn and start heading towards Windward, which is where I live, and it was one of, I think, the best communities out here. I'm a huge fan of it. And over the next couple podcasts, we are going to be doing some real looks, neighborhood by neighborhood, into Windward and figuring out which is the right one for you. They vary a ton, right? Not just in price, but there's 2 different school districts in Windward. Some of these neighborhoods are a lot sort of older than others, right? Like more established than others. And the feel can be very, very different. We're going to go into one of the original neighborhoods in Windward called Broadlands. This is the neighborhood where it's one of the smaller sub-communities in the Windward subdivision. It's one of the oldest. I think these were the model houses that they built when they were building out the subdivision. So there's, a greater variety of architecture in that community. The only thing is those houses were built, 1985 to 1987. So for some people that's going to matter a lot. For some people, it won't. They're not going to feel a lot of them as McMansion-y as some of the more modern ones. And the other real advantage of Broadlands, as we're driving towards it right now, is that the lots are huge. It's not uncommon at all to have an acre. A lot of people have 2 acres or some have a little bit more than that. They're basically the biggest lots that you can get in Windward, even bigger than the really fancy houses that are on the north side of the lake, where you have those $4, $5, $6 million homes. The neighborhood we're driving up to right now is called Park Bridge, and this is part of what I'm saying. There are full communities on either side of the road here, but the way that they, do this, especially when the leaves are on the trees, you would never know it. They've done an incredible job of blending the city into the forest here, and I'm constantly impressed by that. I find it's like a really, really, really cool thing that they've done. I mean, there are, there's hundreds of homes on either side of us right now, but you wouldn't know it. And there's sidewalks everywhere. You can walk from these homes right into, to work if you work close by. You can walk right to a lot of retail. It's mostly food retail, but you can walk to a lot of retail. And they've just finished a bunch of paths that connect all of these neighborhoods here to the Greenway, which links you in, to this incredible multi-use trail system that extends all the way up to past Cumming. Maybe to Cumming, up to about Lake Lanier, I think it is. It's awesome. I mean, you can go from Roswell at the south end all the way up to Lake Lanier at the north end, and it's a hell of a ride. I'm too old and too fat for that ride most of the time, but I've done it a couple times, and it's absolutely awesome on your bike. The one thing that I was always scared about moving out to the burbs, I was like, there's going to be nowhere I can ride my bike anymore. Me on a bicycle was so much a part of New York City to me. It was how I got around. It was my sense of freedom, and the idea that I was going to lose that when I moved out here really bummed me out. But you don't. In fact, the cycling out here is incredible. I've been blown away by it. All right, so right across the street from us right now is Windward, and we're going to drive in. They've got these incredible old farmhouses on either side of the road that they've sort of preserved. I guess they were, I'm kind of making this up, but I think they were the original farmhouses that were out here before all this land was sold and developed. One guy sells firewood. He cuts himself right over there. It's pretty cool. So this is one of my favorite things. This is what sold us on the community when we moved in, was the this entryway here. A lot of these subdivisions, they have kind of, you drive in and it really feels like a subdivision. It doesn't feel so awesome. But when we've been out here, this entrance right here where I'm taking you guys right now, this is what kind of sold us on it, right? The way it just sort of opened up, and so right off to the side, you have the lake to my left. To my right, you have, a lot of the older communities. Right, and this is it's an awesome entrance to the community right here. It feels very, very relaxed. Over here is Clipper Bay. We'll do an episode on that shortly, but we're coming up right now to what we're going to feature first. And basically what I'll do is I'm just going to drive you through this neighborhood and we can talk about it. So this is called Broadlands. I don't know if you can see that sign as we go past. It's called Broadlands. This was the original model home community. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go and basically drive it through. There's like 3 traffic circles that everything is built off of. So this is the first one. And all these homes, you can see they have a really nice spacing between the houses. It's not very cookie cutter at all. I like this neighborhood a lot. This is one of my favorite subdivisions. The thing is, you're not gonna be able to get yourself, like, if you wanted a house built in the last 5 or 10 years, that's not gonna really be around here, but there's gonna be a lot that were renovated and still, they may be, 30 years old at this point, but they've been very well kept and they're in great shape. See, listen, so these houses are really tucked up into the woods here. It's incredible. And all of this that's what I keep trying to say, is you can still walk to Starbucks. You could sell your 2-bedroom house, your 2-bedroom apartment in New York. You could buy one of these, have enough left over to buy like a Porsche if you wanted to, and still be able to walk to Starbucks and live your life. I'm blown away. In this neighborhood, you're seeing a lot of homes are going to range really from about 900 to about 1.5 million. A lot of that is going to depend on the size. There's a pretty wide variety, and you'll have homes going from about 3,700 square feet. And there might be 1 or 2 that are a little bit smaller than that, up to 6,000 square feet or 5,000 square feet, which is pretty large. So this is the second little offshoot here. And these are really awesome homes. I mean, it's January right now, and even though it's 65 degrees out, it's the leaves are off the trees. It's not as beautiful as it normally is, but I absolutely love this neighborhood. And the fact that all of this here honestly costs less than your 2-bedroom, probably less than your 1-bedroom apartment in Manhattan, and your carry cost on it is certainly less than, your cost of living is a lot lower. It blew my mind that this is what you could do. And it's become my mission in life to convince people that, like, you can have this too. You don't, as awesome as New York is, like, there's a whole other world out there that people got to consider sometimes. Right? And these houses are they're really well done. They have these huge lots. I mean, these are probably about 2-acre homes here. Right? And I bet you these are, that house right there is probably about $1 million. I bet. It's not even that much money. So this was our tour of Broadlands. We'll take you back down the hill, right to the exit. And I love it here. I really do. They've done a great job with this neighborhood. Some people have pools. Not a lot. There's a lake club, which has a community pool, which is right down the road. It's for this community. For all these communities. For Windward, there's a lake club. And then a lot of people here go to Lifetime Fitness, which is really incredible. I mean, we personally, tell you the truth, we did the lake club the first year or two we were here, and we ended up just going to Lifetime. We found that the facilities were better, and a lot of the families go there. It goes both ways. All right, this is it. I hope you liked Broadlands. Next we will do Clipper Bay.